Hello there, you're welcome to my channel. In today's video, I want us to take a look at the British Asante Wars. That is going to be our lesson for today. This lesson is a Form 3 lesson. We are basically going to look at the reasons for the Anglo-Asante Wars. These wars between the Asante and the British are known as the Anglo-Asante Wars. And so basically, we are going to look at the reasons for the numerous wars fought between the British and the Asante. And so if you are new here, do not forget to subscribe to our channel. And if you have already subscribed to, we thank you very much for your support. We shall take a look at the effect of the Anglo-Asante Wars in our next video or lesson. So let's dive into our lesson for today. Let's look at our lesson objectives. So by the end of this lesson, we should be able to discuss the reasons for the Anglo-Asante Wars. So what were the various reasons that accounted for the war between the Asante and the British, which I know you might have heard some of them. What were the reasons for these wars? And so that is what we are going to begin with our lesson. Let's take a look at the first of such wars, the first of such reasons. But before that, let's begin with our introduction. Now, there were several wars between the British and the Asante before and even during the partition of Africa during the 19th century. Okay, and we all know the partition of Africa. I will do a video of it very soon, where Africa was divided among these European powers. So even before and after the partition of Africa, there were several wars between the Asante and the British. Now, these several wars, or these wars between the Asante and the British, is what we termed as the Anglo-Asante Wars. So anytime you come across the word Anglo-Asante, we are referring to the wars that were fought between the British and the Asante. Okay, now the British and the Asante fought several wars. A lot of them, some of them were fought in 1807, 1811, 1814 to 1816, 1823 to 1824, 1826 to 1863, 1869, 1873, 1874, 1869 again, and then 1900, which was the last of the wars fought between the British and the Asante, and that was the last Anglo-Asante War, and that is known as the Asantewaa War among the Asante. And so we are going to look at the reasons why the British fought the Asantes, or the reasons why the Asante engaged the British in these numerous or several wars. The first of such reason was an economic reason. Okay, we all know that basically the Europeans came to West Africa to trade. One of the most important reasons for the coming of the Europeans was to trade among the local people in West Africa. And so the British, after arriving along the coast, realized that the Asante were the most powerful ethnic groups among all the people who lived in the Gold Coast at that time. And as far as trade was concerned, there was the need to keep Asante in check in order to prevent them from attacking the coastal state and subsequently taking absolute control of the lucrative trade along the coast. And therefore, the British engaged Asante in several wars in order to stop the Asante from dominating the coast and also trade. So the British main aim was to trade with the Gold Coasters, and Asante at this period were engaged in several wars with other ethnic groups, and thereby making it very, very difficult for the British to trade, because if there is war, I don't think that people can trade among themselves. And so the British had to intervene, and they believed that through war, by conquering Asante and subduing them, that will give them that power over the British, over the Asante, so that peace will prevail for trade to continue. So that was the economic reason, basically trade. All right, let's move on to the second one. The second one was also maintenance of peace and security. Okay, now the British were actually threatened and unsecured by the Asante power. Asantes were very, very warlike people. They embarked on several wars, and the British, I must say, feared them so much so that they feared that if they are not able to conquer Asante, they themselves were not secure along the coast. And so they tried everything they could to engage Asante in a battle or in war so that they could control Asante. So in the first place, the British wanted to maintain security along the coast so that they could be convinced that their forts, which were built along the coast, were not under any threat whatsoever, because they feared of the Asante invasion, because they didn't know what the Asantes had in mind. And so they themselves, the British, feared for their lives living along the coast, and therefore they had to intervene in trying to, subdue Asante, and so therefore engaging Asante in several wars in order to overpower them and keep them calm. Let's move on to the next of the lessons for the reasons. Now, another reason for the Anglo-Asante War was basically the Western education. The British wanted to introduce Western education to the people of the Gold Coast, and definitely, if the British wants to introduce Western education and there is war among the people that they want to introduce the Western education to, obviously it was going to disrupt this project. And so one aim also of the British for coming to the Gold Coast was to introduce the Western form of education. And so, Asante was considered as troublesome, by the British because of their invasion of the coastal states. And so for that reason, the British then had to engage them in war in order to defeat them and also to subdue them so that peace could prevail, and then the British objective of introducing Western education to the people could be materialized. Let's move on to the next one. The next important reason that accounted for the several Anglo-Asante Wars also had to do with the British derogatory remarks about Asante. Now, bear in mind that Asantes have their laws and customs that as a visitor or even as an Asante yourself, you should obey. Even today, I don't think you can actually, disturb or disrespect the Asante laws and customs, particularly with regards to the Asante. Now, what then happened was that the British refused, and this was a deliberate attempt. They refused to recognize these Asante's laws and customs. And for instance, such as McCarthy, who we will learn later, showed a contemptuous attitude towards the Asante at the time of Sebonsu, when he referred to him as a barbarian. And this incident caused war between the Asante and the British. So the British, some of them came with this superiority complex, attitude, and therefore they saw the Asantes as being barbarian, pagan people, backward people, uncivilized people, and therefore decided to use very unpleasant words to describe the Asante. And so the Asantes will not take that lightly if you are to attack their king. And even today, presently, when you attack the Asantes or you attack the king, the Asante, of course, you hear Asantes will back at you and they will find you wherever you are to come and answer questions at their palace. And I believe you might have heard some of these, incidents being, occurring in Ghana even today. Now, let's take a look at the next one, the fifth one. The fifth reason for the Anglo-Asante War also had to do with the harboring of Asante refugees and wanted men by the British. Now, the British, decided to, hide or give a refuge to Asante wanted men. So, for instance, if somebody goes to, perform or do, something bad in the Asante, and the person is being chased after to be punished, this person then goes to the coast, goes to stay there, and the British offer these people, safe, of course, haven, and that infuriated the Asantes on several occasions. Example of this was when the British governor at that time, Richard Pine, refused to hand over an Asante refugee, and this refugee was called Kwesigeni, to the Asante for trial. Now, Kwesi was accused of refusing to hand over to the king as custom demands a gold nugget that he was allegedly to have discovered at Asante Royal Graveyard, and this act provoked the Asante to march in 1863, finally to capture or to forcefully capture Kwesi. So Kwesi found a gold nugget in the Asante palace, the burial place of their kings, and by custom he was supposed to have sent these gold nuggets to the Asante, but he instead kept them, and so he was a wanted man in the Asante kingdom. And what he did was to run away to the coast to seek for refuge, and Richard Pine, the British governor over there, gave him that refuge, and that infuriated the Asante, and they had to march to the coast in 1863 to demand for the release of Kwesi. Let's take a look at the last of the reasons for the Anglo-Asante Wars. The last of them had to do with the Sweet River Convention, and this also accounted for the numerous wars that also occurred between the Asante and then the British. Now, so what was this Sweet River Convention all about? The Sweet River Convention was an agreement signed between the British and the Dutch, and the aim of the agreement was to exchange forts and castles along the coast. And so by this convention, the Dutch were to take over 4 British forts, which was situated east of the Sweet River, and this Sweet River is found in Kakum today. So and so so the Dutch were to take 4 British forts along the eastern side of the Sweet River. Then also between Cape Coast and Elmina. Now the Dutch force of Moree, at Moree, Coromantine, Apam, and Accra, lying east of the river. The British force were also Benia in Apollonia, Disco, Sekendi, and Commander. So by this treaty, what then happens is that the Dutch were going to take all the forts which were situated to the east of the Sweet River, which is found in Kakum. And then the British will also take all the forts that belong to the Dutch in the western side, to the western side of the Sweet River. Now, why would Asante be infuriated, or why would this even lead to war if the British and the Dutch are exchanging forts along the coast? Asante, we all know, is found in the forest region of Ghana. Asante is found in the interior. Asante is not found along the coast. So why would this become a problem to the Asante? Now, by this convention or agreement between the Dutch and the British, what then will happen is that Elmina, which originally was a Dutch fort, after this convention, Elmina was going to be under the control of the British. Now, we all know that Elmina was also very important to the Asante. Asante actually were taking land rent for Elmina Castle. So in essence, Elmina Castle belonged to the Asante. It was part of the Asante Kingdom. Elmina was strategic because Asantes used Elmina to acquire firearms to embark on their several wars of expansion. And therefore, if the British are to take over the fort of Elmina, which then means that is going to stop Asante. Asante was not going to get access to Elmina again, and therefore Asante will not get access to firearms and guns to also embark on these several wars of expansion and conquest that they were embarking on. And therefore Kofi Kakari decided, the Asante Hindiden decided to storm Elmina in order to recapture Elmina. We shall look at the issue of the Sweet River Convention in our next videos that we may be doing. So these were and many more were some of the reasons that led to the Anglo-Asante Wars of several wars, as you have already known. In subsequent lessons, we shall look at some of the wars and then also the effect of these wars. Do not forget to share our link and subscribe to our channel for more of this educative content. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.